Well, we're back. The Electric Scooter Podcast, episode 24? Wow, that's a lot of episodes. I thought 10 was a lot, then I thought 20 was a lot. Well, we got a good one in store for you this time because guess who's back? I'll give you a couple hints. He drove over 3,365 miles across the United States on electric scooters. Representing micromobiles.
Zero to epic.
Oh man, that just gave it away. Alright, it's true. Zero to Epic is with us once again because I love these episodes interviewing Zero to Epic, and the feedback I'm getting from the fan base is, well, you like listening to them too. It's pretty interesting. Zero to Epic. Just crossing the United States, even in a vehicle, is interesting and fun, and there's a lot of stuff to stop and see and do. But doing it on an electric scooter at 25 miles per hour through the rain, and I'm telling you, you're going to see some sights. And you're going to hear some interesting stuff this episode. He's going to give tips for people who want to make long cruises on their scooter, or distance scootering, if you will. He'll talk about cruise control a little bit, something that I am not a fan of. He'll hint a little bit about his next adventure. What? Next adventure? Yeah, I think there's a next adventure coming up. Buffalo wings in Buffalo? No, they're just wings. You don't get Chicago pizza in Chicago, you get pizza. We're also going to talk about a machine that squirts out pancakes. Let's get serious for a moment.
Why is it that rock bands in the 70s, from as far away as England and even Scandinavia and various countries throughout the world, would come to America, cross the entire country, usually coast to coast, to perform in front of live audiences? Wouldn't they still make a ton of money if they didn't go through the hassle and just sat at home and produce their records in a studio? Because they already get a lot of money for that. Well, it's because what they wanted was for folks to go home, especially probably young men, but girls too, pick up a guitar, learn to play the riffs to Smoke on the Water and the introduction to Stairway, and then go on to buy their records well into the future. Well, I'm going to talk about a person here. This is kind of an introduction. It's probably long overdue because we've talked to Zero to Epic so many times already. But this is a guy who lost money even, put his own money into it, decided to cross the entire United States on electric scooters. Now let's think about that for a second. Took 30 days out of his time. Well, 29 to cross, but, months in advance, and then also driving home and all that kind of stuff. So let's just say put a lot of time into an effort to cross the United States. How effective do you think that was? Think about, like I was saying, the rock bands in the 70s. People hear about Zero to Epic and his trip on the radio, on television shows, on the Electric Scooter Podcast, on the Electric Scooter Guide, YouTube videos. Every person that is exposed to his journey has a little seedling in the back of their mind saying, electric scooters, maybe that's something I should check out. Well, actually, most of the people that listen to the Electric Scooter Podcast and ESG are probably already there. But what I mean is, by getting on that scooter, like Led Zeppelin or Aerosmith crossing the United States, and actually seeing people and coming across people who he said actually wondered what it was he was riding. They'd never even seen anything like that, kind of like dropping Spam on the Pacific Islands, World War II, and then when they tasted it, said, "Oh my God, this is amazing." Who knows how many times that happened crossing coast to coast. Think about all the states, think about all the people he came in contact with. So I believe this man had a profound impact in a positive way on scootering, not just in America, but around the world. I know we got a lot of listeners in Australia and UK as well, which is pretty cool. Global Reach. Global Reach, the new sitcom, shortly followed by Global Domination. So think about what this man, Zero to Epic, he wants me to refer to his moniker more than his real name, but he's certainly not hiding his real name. But that's the only reason I continually call him Zero to Epic. Drove through all kinds of weather and came into some dangerous situations just to make scootering and PEVs, or as he calls them, micromobiles. Maybe that's what we should all call them from now on, micromobiles. To make them more well-known, widespread, and hopefully influence people to buy scooters and ride to work or ride to school if you have a short trip without getting into traffic, the hassle of finding a parking spot, not to mention when you arrive at work, the big grin on your face. People look at you, turn their heads as you walk in, and you're taking off your helmet and gloves and stuff. And then you see another couple people on the other side of the office start asking you about scooters, and then they go, "Really? You don't have to register them? Really? It's that cheap to own? No insurance or anything? You just ride them around, huh?" Well, that's the way it is in Nevada. And then pretty soon, some of those office mates, they just might start thinking about seriously buying a scooter. And then look in your cubicle or your automobile repair bay or your kitchen or wherever you work. And instead of seeing people who arrive to work frustrated, arrive to work with huge smiles on their face. Now, wouldn't that be a bit more pleasant of a workplace? That's the workplace for me. Or say you don't really need to go to work anymore because your work, luckily for you, allows you to work from home. Well, you don't need to burn gas. If you're looking at, "Oh, my car is almost dying, and should I get a new car or whatever," you don't need to do that. If you're just working from home, if you have shopping and stuff near your house, of course, that's not going to be feasible for, mid-30s person with 4 children and soccer moms and all that. But there are individuals out there who that pertains to. So that's why I claim Zero to Epic had a profound and positive effect on our climate.
If your life was a scoop of ice cream, would you like to put a little chocolate on it and maybe sprinkle some nuts and top it off with a bright red cherry? If your answer is yes, then you're in the right place listening to the Electric Scooter Podcast. Because ESP is life's topping. All right, so that was a long trip, and I know I'm certainly not about to embark on a journey of that distance, but you see where we are here, beautiful Cottonwood Station in Blue Diamond, Nevada, and it is within scooter distance of at least one, maybe 2 of my scooters. So what kind of tips would you have for me to, any tip that you learned on a long trip, how to set up the scooter, or differences that you would make in your gear, or just any kind of lessons or advice that you can offer to somebody that's getting ready to jump on a scooter and go, let's say, 20 miles?
Okay. Well, the first thing is if your scooter has cruise control, set it up in your P settings. I think every scooter comes with cruise control disabled for safety reasons, which I think they should. But if you have it, set it up. But practice it before you go on your long ride.
Yes.
Because
It can be shocking.
It can be shocking. So practice it, and deactivating the cruise control. It seems like it would be obvious.
It would be the brake, right?
Yeah, it isn't always that way. So yeah, so I had some scooters that to deactivate it. Ironically, you had to press the throttle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is
That sounds like a really bad idea.
it's a terrible idea. So yeah,
Because what happens is you let off of the throttle thinking you're going to get a little bit of engine braking or it's going to start to slow down, and you're surprised for a split second that, hey, it's continuing. So maybe the reason you let off of the throttle was because you see a sharp turn or a big rock in the road or something that makes you, and then when you actually keep going, you then have to hit the throttle to get out of
yes, you do. Yeah, but that's a fault of the scooter, and apparently it's been addressed. So I think it was my scooter was, I don't know, a fluke.
It's engineering. No, I think actually one of my scooters, I believe the Go Trax is like that as well.
Okay.
My Go Trax, yeah.
I don't know, but it should be the brakes. But nevertheless, practice it. But I would set up cruise control. It was a lifesaver in my case, because of course I'm riding several scooters, so my hands get tired, my fingers get tired. So doing that. And also, one thing I learned is riding a scooter for 20, 25 miles nonstop puts a lot of stress on the battery and the motor. So I would not ride continuously for 20 miles.
Single motor?
Or dual motor or anyway. I would take breaks, which is the scooters weren't made for riding 20 miles straight.
We put them through our paces, man. I abuse anything I own.
I abused big time my scooters. So I changed my strategy when I was riding, because I was putting so much stress on the scooters. I was getting error messages. So I said, you know what, I'm going to ride. So about halfway through the trip, I started riding 10 miles on a scooter. Then I would switch scooters. Then I do 10 miles on another scooter. Then I go back to the original scooter, and I give them brakes.
That makes your day a little longer, though, because you're pulling over and you're unloading and loading.
But that brings me to, one of the lowest points of my trip, which is when my scooter started braking on me. And that's part of the reason why I changed my strategy.
You got a flat?
Well, I got several flats.
And the error messages?
Well, the error messages, which it basically shuts the scooter down when there's too much stress put on it. And that obviously is scooter dependent. So in my case, the 0-10X Limiteds, if there's too much stress on the motor, then it would just shut down. It gives you an error message, and it will shut off, and that's it. So you need to give it some time for it to recover and then use it again. But once I started doing the 10 mile,
I'm sorry, let me stop you for 1 second. Because the 10X, 0-10X, though, you had was a limited version. So you had the battery mounted on the handlebar stem.
Correct.
So other people that own 0-10Xs probably won't have the same problem.
They may not. In my case,
I just want to point out that 0-10Xs are not. Don't worry about buying one and having some error
absolutely
message.
not.
Yeah, you had a very limited version of one.
And here's the disclaimer, is I rode these scooters in a way that is not recommended by the manufacturers. Okay, so that's very important to understand.
Yes.
Like I rode them every day. I was riding them, 25, 30 miles, like nonstop. 25 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour. So I was beating them up. I rode them in harsh conditions, cold, which affects battery life a lot. I rode them in tremendous rain. I rode them up hills, against the wind. And most of the time the wind was against me. It was headwind because of the direction I was going. I was going east coast to west coast.
Which made me think of something, too, that I never mentioned to you. You were riding into the sun most of the time. Wasn't that a bummer?
I didn't have that problem because most of my days were overcast. Yes, I saw the sun maybe 4 times, so that was a non-issue. Yeah, it was. I got the worst weather.
That's why we live in Nevada again.
Cold. I'm so happy to be here, and the heat doesn't bother me. So yeah, it was cold. And I was like, the sun was an issue, but the wind. The wind is mostly a southwest, as they call it. So it comes from the southwest. So it's going, northeast. So the wind was I had tailwind one day in my entire trip. Every other day which affected battery life and range. So I had to use more scooters. So yeah, it was
So
tough.
if you had to do it again, would you go from West Coast to East? Sounds like it would be a lot easier, maybe.
If I was doing it on a bicycle, I would 100% go west to east. If I was doing it again on a scooter, I would make sure I have enough scooters, but I would still do it east to west for other reasons. One is
You end up at home.
it gets much prettier. Don't get me wrong, the East Coast, upstate New York, Massachusetts, it's beautiful over there. But it's the hardest part of the trip. So much traffic. That's where most of my almost accidents happen. So it opens up as you go west. You start first with the Midwest, Iowa, Nebraska. There's nothing. It's just you and
I had
and
that same
empty road.
experience when I circled the U.S. in my van. Yep.
There you go. And then you go into Wyoming, which is beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah,
Yellowstone
yeah,
National
right.
Park. You go into Idaho and end up in Oregon, which is just so lush. So even though the battery life is reduced and the wind is kind of a pain, physically it doesn't really affect you, right? You just use an extra scooter because of the range. So I would still do it. And a lot of people have asked me that. Would you do it the other way around? If I was on a bicycle? Absolutely.
How about a
no.
north to south or south to north trip?
That's for next adventures question.
That's one of the questions. That
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
That's the last question I have you. Maybe we'll save that one.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'm going to ask this, and I know you always hesitate because it's not your most exciting part, but I got to ask you because, again, probably nobody cares but me who's listening. Food. For me, I would plan the entire trip around hitting certain spots and ending up where I'd be at Ted's Charbroiled Red Hots in Buffalo for this, and I'd be at this diner in South Dakota for that. I know, like I said, it's not your most important thing that you're concerned with, but there had to have been one or two highlights. Tell me the best thing you ate, the weirdest thing you ate, and the worst thing you ate. Which the weirdest may be the worst too. I don't know.
I was very careful about what I ate because
the athlete side.
Well, not just the athlete side, but I didn't want to try something strange.
You'll get diarrhea when
Exactly.
you're halfway through
Yeah.
your trip.
I didn't want that, so I was not as experimental as I would be otherwise.
Some people think it's funny, but it's really brown and runny. I just wanted to add.
Yeah, so I tried some things. So in Buffalo, obviously, I had the wings.
You had beef on weck?
I had beef on whack. So
And I'm so happy that
loved
you
it.
said you had wings.
Yes,
You
I
didn't
had
say
wings.
I had buffalo wings.
Yeah,
Because
so-
what did you learn about buffalo wings in Buffalo?
Buffalo wings in Buffalo are called wings.
They're just wings.
Just wings. So, but beef on rack was delicious.
Yeah.
And hardly, it's like the one dish of Buffalo that never made it out of there.
No, you can go to Albany, you can go to other cities that are fairly nearby, and they still don't even know what beef on weck is. You want to tell us what it is?
Well, it's just like
It's the bread, right? Weck is the bread.
weck is this German bread, which is like a bun, like just like a hamburger bun, kinda, but and it has salt on top, like
Crusted.
yeah, encrusted on the top, and it has just beef. It's just beef inside bread.
Yeah.
There's no cheese.
It's
there's no
beef
mayo.
on weck.
It's beef on weck. That's all it is, and it's like served au jus. So you dip it in this little, sauce or whatever, and it's delicious.
And what was the name of the place you got the wings again? Because that's a big deal. The two guys from Buffalo and the one girl who are listening want to know where you got you, because there's a big argument between Anchor Bar and Duff's And there's one or two other ones that people say, no, this is the best. No, this is the best. Do you remember the name
We
of the
went to a place called McCarthy's, I believe.
Oh, that's right. But it was newly opened, right? It was an old place that did reopen.
No. The McCarthy's is just a place where we ate. But the place that reopened, so Brian, my support guy, he has a lot of friends around the country, especially on US 20, because Brian is in charge of development, tourism development, business development of US 20. So he knows a lot of people along US 20. So when we went through Buffalo, he had a friend there, and this friend owned this bar that he was reopening. And so this bar was a saloon from the early 1900s. It was like a saloon in Buffalo, and it closed in like early 1990s. And so it's been shut down, and this guy bought it in this really distressed part of the town.
It's like an industrial area, right?
And in Buffalo, I mean, what a story. We'll get to that.
I showed the picture to my buddy who's from Buffalo, and that what you just said is exactly what he told me. He goes, yeah, I don't go to that part of town.
No, it is so distressed, and they're trying to revive it. So he bought this bar, and he's reopening it.
And what's the name of it? Is it?
It's
not McCarthy's, is it?
No. The name of the bar is, and I'm going to get it to you right now because it's...
No rush, and this can always be edited. Postal Worker.
Eugene V. Debs Hall. Eugene V. Debs. So
you couldn't remember that name? It's not the most memorable name for a bar.
Eugene
He
V.
needs
Debs
to rethink his business strategy.
is a gentleman who, decades ago, I'm going to say early to mid 1900s, ran for president of the United States.
Really?
And he was...
He didn't get very far.
No, he was a socialist.
Okay.
And he ran for president while being an inmate at a prison.
All right.
And so, the owner of the bar, he decided to name the bar Eugene V. Debs, and it's a socialist social club. That's what he calls it.
Oh, okay.
And
is that the theme? Does it got like pictures of Stalin and things like that around?
it has a lot of pictures of Eugene
the
V.
guy.
Debs. Yeah, the guy.
Okay.
But they were just putting it together, so it wasn't finished. But anyway.
Hitler was a socialist. Does he have a reverse Hitler, like no hair immediately under his nose, but hair on the sides or something like that? No?
No. But these were an awesome guy, and he let us stay there. It's a 2-story place, so he's going to actually live above the bar. And so we stayed there, and there was no furniture, nothing. So it was so unique. It was
That's
awesome.
neat.
Yeah, it was really neat.
That's what makes it an adventure.
Oh, and Buffalo. I had never been to Buffalo. I just heard about
it. Great? I'd
Buffalo.
never heard anything great about it. I didn't know. When I was there, I just loved it.
Buffalo is a sad story. What happened to a once thriving city?
Oh, it used to be. It used to have the richest people in the world lived in Buffalo.
And they have these. So essentially, Buffalo used to be this thriving place, and they used to have all this shipping commerce and whatnot. And then they opened this new, canal that totally destroyed their shipping business, and so everybody left the city. And I want to say 80% of the population left, and there's all these buildings just empty. This train terminal, which is incredible, that I saw, completely has been empty since like the 1970s. It's enormous. All these what they call grain elevators. Okay, these are just like towers, like silos.
Silos, yeah.
Okay, but
I've
they call them elevators.
They're very dangerous. Yeah.
They are huge. They're enormous, and they are just unused. They just sit there, just like empty.
Yeah,
so
people
so
die
the
in
city
those things.
is just so. It's such a sad story, and they're trying to revive it. And
I think they're doing a good job. I do like that they still keep their traditions. They still have their. They have their accents, and they have their unique foods, and people that are from there love it. A lot of people don't know this. President William McKinley, when he was vice president, I think Theodore Roosevelt was president, was shot in Buffalo.
No kidding.
And when I went through the city of Buffalo, my buddy was with me who was born and raised there, and he was pointing out to me these big buildings that are now housed with corporations or government organizations, Feed the Children, whatever, Doctors Abroad, whatever, different organizations, were once homes of millionaires. They're huge, huge mansions. And I don't know if you got to go downtown. I got to see they have a submarine there, and it's right. They've got some kind of water. Obviously, they have one of the Great Lakes there. I should know my geography better. It's a Great Lake. It's very big, but I can't think of the name of it. But Buffalo has a lot to offer. It's a unique area. And like you said, some of the cities around it aren't even like, it's like almost like an island or something. The food and the accents and things don't seem to bleed over.
Yeah,
it's
so
interesting.
it was. Yeah, I mean the history I learned. So I'm scooting America, but I'm learning about the country, and that's just one city, right? I mean, I crossed 300 cities.
We mentioned food and we talked about Buffalo for 10
exactly.
minutes.
So that's where we go. We go on these rabbit holes. And,
it's a rabbit hole. Did you eat any rabbit? Wait, no, you didn't have
I did
anything.
not.
You had a pizza muffin.
I had a pizza muffin, which was also somewhere on the East Coast, which was really interesting but amazing. It's like this muffin with pepperoni inside. It's
initially sounds bad, but when you think about it, bread with it probably had tomato sauce.
Yeah.
And pepperoni.
It was delicious.
It's actually quite delicious.
It was amazing. So I had that I tried, and I had perch in Ohio.
Sure.
Lake Erie perch. So
I think they call it sunfish some places.
I don't
some
know.
areas.
But so that was interesting. I had never had it. Very fishy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very
fishy.
fishy.
It's a freshwater fish.
And I'll tell you one of my favorite things, and this is, in terms of health, is terrible for you. But throughout the country, they have all these convenience stores, right? Every state has like their own chain of convenience
Circle
stores.
K.
Yeah, but there's some like there's
7-Eleven.
just specific to certain states. So when you go through Iowa, there's this thing called Casey's, right? Convenience store / gas station.
Is it Casey like the name Casey?
Correct.
Okay, it's not K and then
No,
C like
it's with a
Kansas
C.
City.
So
Okay.
Casey's, and Casey's is just like a regular convenience store, but they have this thing called a breakfast pizza, and you it's inside this little acrylic case, and it's just rotating.
America was really influenced by the Italians, wasn't it? This is the middle of America.
So as soon as I got to Iowa, Brian, my support guy said, you got to try this breakfast pizza. And I look at it, and it has like eggs, bacon. You can get a sausage breakfast pizza or a bacon breakfast pizza. So it's basically cheese, egg,
all good stuff,
and bacon. Oh, Dagwood, it was so good.
And how many times did you eat that?
Well, as much as I could. Yeah. So I had the Casey's breakfast pizza was a highlight.
And what is it, like $3 or something probably?
Less than that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was super cheap. But other than that, like I said, I didn't get too experimental because I was going to be on a scooter in the middle of nowhere with nothing. I didn't want to be looking for restrooms on the side of the street. So I kept it really simple. I ate stuff that does not upset my stomach, so I didn't get really experimental. I kept it pretty straightforward.
There was something, I can't remember what it is now, about pancakes. Did you come across like a machine that made pancakes?
I
or
did.
Something?
Yeah, so we were, I think it was in Wyoming. I think it was in Cody, Wyoming. And really interesting going through the country during the pandemic, okay, because every state has their own laws. So, and we covered, sometimes 2, sometimes even 3 states in one day. So you go from one state, and it's just like this paranoia, about the pandemic and masks and blah, blah. Then you start going Midwest and stuff. People are like, pandemic? What are you talking about?
Smoking cigarettes. No, they don't even know what a mask
So
is.
some of the hotels is like, you got to wear a mask, and there's no breakfast. Pandemic has ended breakfast. And then you go the next day somewhere else, and there's like a full-on
Breakfast
buffet.
is illegal.
And you have a full-on buffet. And,
Wow.
and it's like, I haven't seen a hot
It's like
breakfast
Florida.
buffet.
Nobody in Florida
Yeah,
cared at
so
all.
it was incredible. I'm like, I haven't had a breakfast buffet at a hotel in like a year and a half or whenever I traveled before the pandemic. So we get to Wyoming. There's this machine right sitting there, and it has pancakes on it. I'm like, I asked the lady that worked at the hotel, saying, "What is it?" She goes, "It's a pancake machine." I was like, "What do you mean a pancake machine? do I need to put pancake the stuff in one side, like the waffles you make at the hotels. You put the mix,
Right,
and then
yeah.
And she goes, no, just press go.
Hit
press
the button.
hit
and
the
it
button.
Squirts out pancakes.
There it goes. It just squirts out.
Were they good, or
you know what? They were better
they
than
didn't
I
taste
thought
like
they would
motor oil or
be. No, and it gives you two
no
pancakes.
aluminum shavings in it or anything.
It just you press the button, and a few seconds later, bloop, here comes out a pancake out of the side of the thing. And I thought that was really unique. But other than that, I mean, we stopped at a lot of diners, and
You love diners.
I love
don't you?
diners. I have a thing for diners. I did my entire life.
Arizona has a lot of good diners. I don't know if you've been down there. Route
I have.
66.
Yeah. So whenever I always asked Brian, and of course he knew all of 20, I'd say, if there's a diner, and we never ate when we started the day. That was our routine. Like in the morning, I was always in a rush to get out. So we didn't get up super early, especially because of the weather. So I checked the weather, like how cold is it at 8 a.m., 9 a.m.
yeah.
So I'd wait till it got to, like 48, 49 degrees if possible. And then we'd leave. So we'd leave around between 8 and 9. And we wouldn't eat. Even at the hotels, most on the East Coast didn't have any breakfast. So I'd be like, let's just keep going. And then about 2 hours later, I'd say if there's a diner, around 11 o'clock, let's go there. And then we just have, bacon and eggs and pancakes, which I love. I love breakfast for any meal.
Breakfast is
I'm a
awesome.
breakfast anytime kind of guy. So I start my day with that. So in terms of healthy, I didn't eat healthy at all. And you know me, I'm mostly like a plant-based guy, and
Right.
berries and stuff like that. But no, I let myself eat, and the food didn't upset my stomach, so I was good.
Yeah, it worked for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. I feel kind of successful too because you don't like talking about food, and I got you to talk about food for maybe 12 minutes or so. So I look at that as a success.
It's a win.
0 to epic. Zero to epic. Yeah, man. How about that song? That's provided by Paul Somerville, yes, of the Electric Scooter Guide. That's his band from the Bay Area, California, The Conspiracy. Da-da-da. Was everybody tracking what I was saying in the opening of this episode about bands from the 70s touring the United States? Think about every person that Zero to Epic came into contact with, all the little news programs from the TV shows and the cities dotted along US 20, which, by the way, is trying to make a resurgence, kind of like Route 66. Think about all the people that he came in contact with or saw him on the news or had questions about scooters. That's what I was talking about when I said he was planting a seed in their mind. They might not immediately run out and buy electric scooters. Some of them will. But there are a lot of people who are just going to start thinking, and that little seed will begin to germinate. That's why those bands cross the United States, to come into contact with fans of their music. Because once somebody saw them perform, they would then go home, buy the records, learn the riffs on their guitar. And I'm not sure if I'm successful, but I'm trying to draw a parallel. Do you see what I mean? Am I making sense? I'm making sense to me. I'm saying a lot of people who had no exposures to electric scooters now have exposure to electric scooters. And that's good for the community, good for planet Earth, good for you, good for me. It's all good. If you enjoyed this episode, I sure did. stand by for next week, episode 25, because come on, if you're going from coast to coast on an electric scooter at 25 miles per hour, you're going to have a few stories, right? And Zero to Epic has some interesting ones, so stick around, and until then, keep the shiny side up and the dirt side down.